The Frogman was not just a World War II potboiler, it was a classified military operation conducted on a Hollywood soundstage. A technical nightmare filmed with cameras never meant to see the deep, and a propaganda mission so effective it forged the identity of America's most elite warriors for decades to come. Behind the thrilling dives and explosive heroics lies a submerged world of deception. A film that bragged of Navy authenticity while dressing its star in historically inaccurate swim trunks. A production that hired real combat divers as stuntmen while its lead actor wrestled with the guilt of never serving. A movie that promised the tropical Pacific but delivered the bone-chilling chop of the Virginia coast. This was Hollywood's first deep dive into the secret world of underwater commandos, and the chaos behind the scenes was more brutal, more bizarre, and more consequential than anything the Japanese could throw at them. I am about to reveal 20 wild facts about the Frogmen that will permanently change how you see this classic. And stick around for the bonus fact that exposes the real-life, unsung Italian commando whose wartime brilliance indirectly inspired this entire film and the very creation of the United States Navy SEALs. Number 20. The entire film was a Pentagon-sanctioned recruiting ad. This was not a studio passion project. It was a sanctioned Department of Defense operation, stamped with the active cooperation of the United States Navy. The film was engineered from the first draft as a dynamic, thrilling recruitment tool for the post-war era. The Navy provided unparalleled access, ships, equipment, and technical advisors to ensure the underwater demolition teams were portrayed not as soldiers, but as the ultimate fearless, red-blooded, death-defying he-men. Every frame of underwater daring and selfless sacrifice served a dual purpose: cinematic entertainment and real-world enlistment. The Navy understood the power of myth-making, and 20th Century Fox was their chosen factory. The film was not art for art's sake. It was a meticulously crafted, big-budget piece of propaganda, with military public relations, officers, and Hollywood producers working in lockstep to sell the glory, danger, and purpose of a secretive, elite service to a new generation. Number 19. The tropical Pacific was frozen Virginia chop. The film's depiction of balmy South Pacific missions is one of its most sustained geographical lies. While the story unfolds in tropical waters, the most grueling, physically demanding underwater sequences were shot not near Hawaii, but off the coast of Norfolk, Virginia, in the dead of winter. The actors, including star Dana Andrews, were subjected to freezing temperatures while wearing nothing but standard-issue swim trunks. Andrews later told reporters the water was agonizingly cold and the 3-week shoot was a deeply uncomfortable ordeal. This harsh, unglamorous environment was not a directorial choice for realism. It was a brutal necessity for Navy cooperation and logistical convenience. The contrasting tropical establishing shots were filmed later in the warmer Virgin Islands, creating a jarring disconnect between the actors' real suffering and the warm, inviting locale portrayed on screen. They were not just acting out battles against the enemy, they were fighting a very real, very personal war against hypothermia, all to maintain a seamless cinematic illusion for the audience. Number 18, the director collapsed and was secretly replaced mid-shoot. The punishing, waterlogged schedule took a direct physical toll on director Lloyd Bacon. During the intense production, Bacon fell seriously ill, struck down by a severe case of influenza. Faced with the prospect of shutting down an expensive, complex, and Navy-coordinated shoot, the studio made a covert, behind-the-scenes switch worthy of a spy film. Assistant director Dick Mayberry quietly stepped in, took the reins, and directed significant portions of the film until Bacon recovered enough to return. This critical substitution was kept completely under wraps from the public and the press to maintain the illusion of a single, steady directorial vision. To this day, it remains unknown exactly which scenes Mayberry directed, meaning the credited work of Lloyd Bacon is, in reality, a collaborative patchwork. The military-like mission of the film's production proved more important than a single auteur's vision. The show had to go on, even if its captain was temporarily incapacitated. Number 17. The script was surgically stripped of every female character. In a stark, almost radical departure from typical Hollywood fare of the era, The Frogmen features not a single speaking role for a woman. No love interests, no nurses in sickbay, no tearful wives waving goodbye from the pier. This was not an avant-garde artistic choice about narrative focus. It was a cold, logistical mandate from the producers, due to the remote, arduous, and entirely ship or water-based nature of the story, the screenplay was deliberately scrubbed clean of all female parts during development. The film thus became a starkly, purely masculine universe, concerned solely with what one reviewer called coral poisoning, explosives, and underwater tripwires. This created a uniquely Spartan and focused war movie, but it also meant the human cost of war was shown only through the immediate present tense trauma of the men on the front line. It was a movie by, for, and about the brothers in arms offering no window into the world they left behind. Number 16, Robert Wagner's tiny role was a power play in Hollywood's jungle. Robert Wagner's minuscule role as an ensign, a part with barely a single line, was not a step down. It was a calculated act of career defiance and opportunism. The role was first offered to another rising young star under contract at 20th Century Fox. When that actor refused the part, he was suspended by the studio. In a brazen attempt to manipulate the situation, that actor's agent then telephoned Wagner directly. He warned Wagner he would be a fool to accept the role, hoping the young actor would also refuse, thereby forcing the studio to offer his own client better terms. Wagner, shrewdly seeing a chance to advance himself at a rival's expense, accepted the part immediately. He later said he learned a tremendous amount on the set of a major production and received valuable, confidence-boosting encouragement from veteran star Richard Widmark. For Wagner, this was not about the size of the role, it was a Hollywood power play. He seized a fleeting chance to climb the ladder, turning a potential bit part into a strategic, career-affirming victory. Number 15. The Frogmen's high-tech gear was a glaring historical lie. For a film that prided itself on Navy-approved realism and technical accuracy, it made one glaring, fundamental error in plain sight. The Frogmen are consistently shown using 3-cylinder Aqua-Lung's open-circuit scuba gear that releases a stream of bubbles with every exhale. In reality, underwater demolition teams in World War II primarily used closed-circuit rebreathers, like the Lambertson Amphibious Respiratory Unit, which recycled breathing gas and produced no bubbles. Open-circuit gear was virtually unused in actual combat because that telltale stream of bubbles would instantly betray a diver's position to any enemy lookout. This was not a minor oversight, it was a significant anachronism. The filmmakers, likely prioritizing clear dramatic visuals for the audience over opaque historical fact, chose the more recognizable Aqua-Lung. It is a classic case where Hollywood spectacle and visual clarity actively trumped the very realism the Navy was so keen to help sell, creating an image of Frogmen that was technologically misleading. Number 14, real combat. Frogmen did the life or death stunt work. The Hollywood actors did not perform the most complex and hazardous underwater work. For the technically challenging, dangerous sequences like the high-speed boat extractions, the precise setting of explosive charges, and the intricate underwater maneuvers, the production brought in the only true experts, the Frogmen themselves. Active duty underwater demolition team members, some reportedly from the very 1944 the film was based on, were temporarily assigned from active duty to serve as stunt doubles and technical consultants. These were not peacetime sailors, they were combat veterans performing their actual life and death wartime skills for the camera. This ensured unparalleled, gritty authenticity in the action scenes, but created a surreal meta-reality on set. Real warriors were reenacting their own classified profession for a movie, while highly paid actors like Dana Andrews and Richard Widmark portrayed the dramatic reactions and command decisions on the safer, drier decks of the ship. Number 13. Richard Widmark's authenticity was masked by personal guilt. Richard Widmark, who perfectly embodied the tough, no-nonsense naval commander, Lieutenant Commander John Lawrence, carried a significant private burden throughout the shoot. Despite his utterly convincing air of military authority, Widmark himself did not serve in World War II. A damaged eardrum had kept him out of the service. This fact created a quiet, unspoken point of contrast with several of his co-stars. Jeffrey Hunter had served in the Navy, and Jack Warden was a decorated veteran who had served from 1938 to 1946. For an actor who would become frequently cast in authoritative military and leadership roles, this lack of personal service could generate a complex, unspoken dynamic on a set filled with real veterans and active duty personnel. His powerful performance as a stern, capable leader was not just skilled acting. It may have been, in part, a profound portrayal of the military man he was never able to become, adding a layer of poignant depth to his character's drive to prove himself. Number 12. Dana Andrews' off-screen problem cast a shadow over the set. While the official records do not detail specific on-set conflicts, they hint strongly at off-camera drama surrounding lead actor Dana Andrews. Contemporary sources and later recollections from those connected to the production note that Dana Andrews and his drinking during the filming was a known, if hushed, topic of concern. Andrews battled alcoholism throughout much of his career, a struggle that was an open secret in Hollywood. The implication from these accounts is that his personal battles may have been a significant behind-the-scenes challenge during a physically demanding, disciplined, and military-supervised production. This potential subtext adds a layer of real-world tension to his on-screen portrayal of Chief Jake Flanagan, a resentful, by-the-book veteran skeptical of his new commander. The line between Andrews' performance of a troubled, stubborn chief and the actor's own real-life struggles may have been dangerously blurred, lending an unintended authenticity to his character's simmering discontent. Number 11. The Navy support came with strings attached, total control. 20th Century Fox did not just get Navy cooperation, they won an exclusive, hard-fought guarantee of it, beating out several other major studios who were clamoring to make the first Frogmen film. This priceless access, however, was a double-edged sword. The Navy's extensive support providing the United States ship Kleinsmith as a primary filming platform and invaluable technical advice came with the non-negotiable expectation of ultimate script and portrayal approval. Every story beat, every character dynamic, and every depiction of procedure had to showcase underwater demolition team operations accurately, and, more importantly, portray the United States Navy in a unanimously heroic, unified, and professional light. This level of institutional control fundamentally shaped the narrative, ensuring it served first as a tribute and recruiting tool, and only second as a dramatic story. The film was not an independent artistic exploration, it was a co-produced monument, with the Navy holding final veto power over the reflection of its own image in the Hollywood mirror. Number 10. The Beach Prank was a real underwater demolition team legend of esprit de corps. One of the film's most memorable character moments, where the frogman Pappy Creighton sneaks ashore to paint a sign welcoming the Marines, seems like pure Hollywood bravado and comic relief. Incredibly, it was lifted directly from documented underwater demolition team history. The real Team 4, which the film's team is modeled after, famously painted a sign on the beach at Guam during the invasion that read, "Welcome Marines United Service Organizations that way." This was not a screenwriter's inventive flourish. It was a celebrated, real-life act of esprit de corps and friendly rivalry between the elite Navy underwater teams and the Marine Corps they directly supported. The film's incorporation of this prank, which leads to Creighton being seriously wounded, bridges a powerful gap between authentic military folklore and cinematic drama. It grounds a pivotal character moment in surprising, gritty truth, showing that even in the shadow of death, a unique brand of humor and camaraderie persisted. Number 9. The torpedo disarming scene was a sound design masterclass. The film's white-knuckle climax, where Widmark's Lawrence and Andrews Flanagan must delicately disarm a live torpedo lodged in the ship's sickbay, is a masterpiece of tension built almost entirely through revolutionary sound design. Sound designer Roger Heeman Sr. crafted an immersive, terrifying audio experience. The oppressive creaking of the damaged ship, the ominous rush of water outside the hull, the nerve-shredding metallic scraping of tools on the torpedo's casing, and the terrifying, definitive snap of the final, critical component. Critics and fans have long praised the sequence for expressing immense emotion and dread without the crutch of a dramatic musical score. Heeman's work was so pioneering that his son, Roger Heeman Jr., would later follow in his footsteps and win an Academy Award for his iconic sound work on Jaws. This scene was not just acted, it was painstakingly built and layered in a Foley studio, proving that in the right hands, what an audience hears is infinitely more powerful and claustrophobic than what they see. Number 8. The camera work was designed to make audiences seasick, to create an immersive, relentless, documentary-like feel. Director Lloyd Bacon and cinematographer Norbert Brodin employed a constantly moving, subtly rocking camera technique throughout the entire film. This was not reserved for action scenes at sea. They used it even in interior shots aboard the ship's cabins and mess halls. The goal was visceral, to make the audience feel the perpetual, unshakable motion of naval life, to never let them forget for a single moment that they were aboard a vessel in the vast, unforgiving, open ocean. While highly effective for realism, this aggressive visual style had a notorious, literal side effect. It made some viewers in theaters feel genuinely motion sick. This directorial choice was not about comfort or classical composition, it was about raw, almost physical authenticity. The filmmakers were willing to unsettle their audience's stomachs to achieve a greater sense of you are there realism, pulling them into the disorienting world of the Frogmen. Number 7. The studio fought a legal battle over the title itself. Before a single frame of film was shot or a single actor was cast, the production was nearly scuttled by a legal skirmish over its very name. Producer Paul Short of rival studio Allied Artists lodged a formal protest, asserting he had a prior claim to the title The Frogmen and that 20th Century Fox could not use it. A tense, behind-the-scenes negotiation ensued, threatening to derail the project or force an awkward, last-minute rename. Eventually, Short dropped his claim, allowing Fox to proceed with their chosen title. This obscure legal tussle highlights the intense commercial value and competition Hollywood saw in the exotic, thrilling, and marketable concept of frogmen in the early 1951. The fight was not about artistic vision or star power. It was a corporate battle over owning the brand name of this new, mysterious type of military hero emerging from the shadows of World War II. Number 6. It was a box office smash with a commonplace story. Contemporary critics were largely unimpressed with the film's plot mechanics. The trade publication Variety went so far as to call the central story slight and rather commonplace. Yet, defying critical expectations, the film was a major commercial hit. It earned an impressive $2.1 million in United States theatrical rentals, proving its powerful draw with audiences. Moviegoers did not flock for narrative innovation. They came for the unprecedented spectacle and technical realism. The thrilling, never-before-seen underwater photography, the authentic, detailed Navy procedures, and the gritty, no-frills, all-male atmosphere provided a novelty that completely overrode a predictable command drama structure. Its success proved a timeless Hollywood lesson. Execution, subject matter, and sheer visceral excitement could triumph over a formulaic script, making it a direct prototype for the modern, technically obsessed military action film. Number 5. Last-minute casting changes altered the film's entire DNA. The film we know almost had a completely different creative soul. Initially, hard-edged director Henry Hathaway was set to direct, with character actor Millard Mitchell in a starring role. Furthermore, Richard Conte was originally slated to play the ship's captain, Pete Vincent, a role that ultimately went to Gary Merrill. Actors Jack Elam and Craig Hill were also first cast in roles that eventually went to others. This wholesale, late-stage recasting just before production suggests significant creative shifts and uncertainty in the project's early development. The central, fiery dynamic between Richard Widmark and Dana Andrews, the core engine of the film's drama, was not the initial vision. The final iconic lineup was a result of a production that found its footing and identity through a series of personnel changes, converging on the perfect ensemble we recognize today, only after considerable behind-the-scenes shuffling. Number 4, the premiere was held on a Navy base, not a Hollywood theater. In the clearest possible sign of the film's true purpose and intended primary audience, its world premiere was not held at a glamorous Los Angeles theater like Grauman's Chinese. Instead, the first official showing was a special event held at the United States Naval Amphibious Base in Little Creek, Virginia, the very birthplace and training ground for the real Underwater Demolition Teams. This deliberate venue choice was a tribute and a direct appeal to the military community whose story was being told. It signaled that this was, first and foremost, the Navy's film, premiering for an audience of sailors, officers, veterans, and the families of the very men it portrayed. The glitz of Hollywood was consciously set aside in favor of seeking the approval and blessing of the armed forces, anchoring the movie's legacy not in show business, but in the real, gritty world it sought to depict and celebrate. Number 3, the underwater knife fight was pure Hollywood fantasy. The film's climactic, silent underwater knife fight between Commander Lawrence and a Japanese diver is a gripping, beautifully shot piece of cinema. However, it represents the point where the film's documentary-like aspirations fully gave way to Hollywood action convention. While underwater demolition team missions were incredibly dangerous, involving covert reconnaissance and demolition under the very noses of the enemy, hand-to-hand combat beneath the waves with combat knives was not a standard, expected, or even likely part of their duty. Their job was stealth and demolition, not underwater duels. The scene was crafted for pure cinematic thrill, and to provide a personal, visceral, man versus man climax to the narrative conflict. It prioritizes a satisfying, exciting finale for the audience overall. The strict, less cinematic realities of underwater demolition work, showcasing the inevitable blend of fact and fiction in even the most authentic war films. Number 2, theaters sold it with kitschy fishbowl peep shows to sell the bizarre novelty of an underwater movie to the public. 20th Century Fox's marketing department devised one of the most peculiar promotional gimmicks of the era. Trade magazines recommended that theater managers set up special peephole displays in their lobbies. Patrons would look through a hole into a glass fishbowl or tank, inside of which were enlarged, waterproofed promotional images of the Frogmen in their full gear flippers, masks, and breathing apparatus. This kitschy, almost carnival-like tactic was designed to physically capture the public's curiosity about the strange, alien aquatic world the film promised to reveal. It was a gimmick that perfectly highlighted the movie's unique selling point. Not its movie stars, not its plot, but the mysterious, otherworldly environment it explored. The marketing campaign was not focused on drama or patriotism. It was squarely focused on underwater spectacle as a curiosity to be witnessed. Number 1, it directly inspired the founding generation of Navy SEALs. The film's most profound and lasting legacy is its monumental, real-world impact on American Special Forces. Countless Navy SEALs from the founding generation have cited the Frogmen as the single, definitive inspiration that first sparked their desire to serve. Legendary figures like Richard Marcinko, the first commanding officer of the famed SEAL Team 6, and Medal of Honor recipient Michael E. Thornton, have publicly credited this black and white Hollywood film with planting the initial seed of aspiration. The movie provided the first popular, thrilling, and accessible glimpse into the clandestine world of underwater warriors for a generation of young boys. The teams it dramatized were the direct organizational and doctrinal forerunners of the SEALs, established by President John F. Kennedy just a decade later. The film was not just a tribute to past heroes of World War II and Korea. It accidentally became the most effective recruiting film ever made for the most elite special operations unit in the world, creating a legacy of courage and service that far eclipses its box office receipts. Bonus fact, the film's ultimate inspiration was an Italian war hero. For all its celebration of American ingenuity, the core concept of the Frogmen, and indeed the very existence of modern naval special warfare, owes a profound debt to an unsung enemy, Italy's Decima Flottiglia Mas. During World War II, these Italian frogmen executed some of the most audacious naval raids in history, using primitive human torpedoes to cripple Allied battleships in heavily guarded harbors like Alexandria. Their success was so devastating and psychologically impactful that Allied planners were forced to take frantic notice. The United States Navy's initial underwater demolition teams were created in part as a direct response to this new asymmetrical threat and to replicate their effectiveness for Allied amphibious campaigns. The techniques of stealthy underwater infiltration, sabotage, and using individual divers as strategic weapons were all pioneered by these Italian commandos. So, while the Frogmen paints a picture of purely American heroism, the shadowy blueprint for those heroes was drawn, ironically, by the very enemies they were created to defeat. The film is a tribute to American warriors, but the warriors' playbook was written in part in Italy. The Frogmen endures as a fascinating, layered contradiction. It was a technically innovative film shackled by a formulaic plot, a Navy propaganda piece that accidentally scripted the future legends of the SEAL teams, and a brutally uncomfortable shoot that somehow resulted in a genre classic. It captured a unique, fleeting moment in history when Hollywood and the United States military collaborated to mythologize a secretive branch of service just as the Cold War dawned, using real combat veterans as stuntmen and freezing movie stars as their proxies. Its true legacy is not measured in its Oscar nominations for cinematography and story, but in the trident pins worn by generations of SEALs who first dreamed of that life after seeing it on a drive-in or television screen. So, the next time you watch a modern, high-tech war film about elite special operators, remember the black and white pioneers who first rolled off the boat into the dark and into our collective imagination. If these behind the scenes battles and hidden histories fascinate you, hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which other classic war film I should dive into next. Because in Hollywood, even the most realistic heroics are built on a foundation of chaos, coincidence, and forgotten truths.